Okay, I think we have everyone logged in. Are you good? Okay. We are all logged in. For those that aren't familiar, we have a digital platform that we review our agendas on. I'm getting a little feedback on my mic. Let me see if this is better. I don't know. Does it sound okay for you guys? Okay, I'm getting a little feedback. We have a digital system that we review the agenda in, so everybody has to be logged in before we can proceed with the meeting. So I appreciate your patience. I will now call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone, we have quorum and we will begin the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Arts Commission for December 19th, 2022. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask staff to provide details in each case. I will ask if the applicant has anything to add, and I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. If you wish to address the Arts Commission, you will be recognized. Please go to the central podium, state your name and address for the record, and begin your comments, and limit them to no more than 3 minutes, please. I have one quick announcement. We have a new commission member. I'd like to welcome Commissioner Center to the Horseshoe this afternoon. Thank you. Welcome. Our next item, acceptance of the meeting minutes from the November 21st regular meeting. I hope everyone has had a chance to read through the minutes, and if there are no corrections, I will entertain a motion and a second through PrimeGov on your screen. It does appear that we had a motion from Commissioner Chambers and a second from Commissioner Cooper. Any further discussion? Seeing none, you may now vote on your screen. Thank you. This item passes. Moving on to item 3, items for discussion action. Item 3A, a presentation of the report from Indigenous Knowledge Keepers on Indigenous perspectives on the Land Run Monument, recontextualizing the Land Run Monument. Randy, can you present this important item for us?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Randy Marks, Arts Liaison for the city. The Land Run Monument is a magnificent piece of work. Paul Moore did an exceptional job of depicting the events of the day in 1889 when people lined up on the border of the unassigned lands in the so-called unassigned lands in central Oklahoma, and rushed in to stake their claim to free land. And this is the founding mythology of Oklahoma City, and by that I don't mean that it is not true. It's our founding story. This is the way that Oklahoma City was founded. The story didn't begin there, though. The story began some thousands and thousands of years ago with the people that first came to North America and inhabited the Great Plains, including Oklahoma, eventually, what became Oklahoma. And then more recently, those people were joined by other natives across what became the United States as the indigenous tribes were forced out of their homelands and forced into ever smaller territories in Indian Territory and in what became Oklahoma Territory, including the so-called unassigned lands. They may have been unassigned in some sense, but they were home to thousands of people whose ancestors had been here for thousands of years. And then also to those people that had been forcibly removed from their lands elsewhere. And then once again, their lands were taken away from them. So it is a complicated story. We don't need to point any fingers. There are acts of heroism on all sides. People that came were brave. Some of them were not maybe quite so brave, but were looking to make an easy score. There's all kinds of stories involved in those people that lined up and ran in when the cannon was fired in 1889. Anyway, this is a story. So we have a really monumental and well done piece of work that depicts that day from a particular perspective. But there's been a desire on the part of many people, many of them Native Americans, but many of them not Native Americans, that want to see a more complete story told. And that is the genesis of this. I'm not going to recap everything that happened to lead us to this point today about where the report came from. You've had a few days, and hopefully you've been able to read that and digest it and think about it, and your discussion will drive what we do here today. And I don't need to recap every bit of that. I'll hit a few highlights. And then others are here that will speak both on the commission that were involved in the group, in the committee that led to the report, and then others that are here in the audience that will want to speak from their perspective about it. Brenda may give more information about how this actually kicked off, but let's remember that this all started happening against the background of Black Lives Matter, and where stories that have been told for a couple hundred years were starting to be questioned, monuments were being torn down. And there was an interest among a lot of people in Oklahoma City and in Oklahoma to see the same thing happen in regard to the Land Run Monument. A group called the Spirit Group stepped forward and became the impetus by reaching out to Mayor Holt, among other things, and wanting to start a conversation. And the mayor connected the Spirit Group with Robbie, and a discussion was started. A committee was formed, and we started down a path that led to getting a grant from the Oklahoma Humanities to study what is an indigenous perspective on the Land Run Monument. Now, this is, in a sense, a ridiculous task. We're wanting to somehow distill the responses of thousands of people that have thousands of different feelings into a report. So this is just meant to be the start of this conversation, but fortunately, I got to be there during a lot of the committee meetings, and I can tell you it was a powerful experience. You may hear more about that in a little bit. The report expresses some powerful emotion, and it's time for this conversation to take place and to respond to that conversation. That's mostly what I have to say about the report. I can give you, the report was made, we made it to the Oklahoma Humanities. We had discussions in planning department about the right procedure to bring this on forward into the public. This is the first public forum. The Arts Commission is the public forum for this momentous, potentially momentous discussion to start. Which speaks to the power of art and which speaks to the necessity of having an arts commission of intelligent and wise and talented people to help lead the discussion and lead the way. So that's where we are today. I would respond to any questions from the commissioners. I'm going to throw it back to the chair and let Allison direct from here.
Commissioners, any questions?
I have a
Yes, Commissioner Cooper.
It says, are we being asked to act on this report? Are we receiving the report? Or what is it that we're actually being asked to do in response to this report?
So the staff recommendation is this. So recommend receipt of the report and further recommend the report to the City Council, accompanied by a further recommendation to proceed with a call to artists for the design, fabrication, and installation of informational art markers to be installed adjacent to the Land Run Monument. So let me explain that just a little bit. So part of the report was not just a perspective from indigenous people, but also talking about what is a way forward that we could start creating a new context for the Land Run Monument, to start creating a broader context that story fits inside of. And so that is the next step. This is envisioned as a 3-step process. The first was the report itself. The second was some kind of, we don't even know exactly what to call it, not necessarily art markers in a traditional sense, like a granite obelisk or something bronze out there. It may be something entirely different, but it would be something that would begin putting the land run into a wider context. And then a potential third step in which, adjacent to the land run monument, a larger installation that further tells the story of the indigenous people would be installed. Now that would be later on, and that's in the discussion. We're not making any recommendation about that today. So today it is to receive the report, to recommend it to City Council, and also recommend that the next step be taken to create a call to artists for this next phase.
I guess while we did have several days to mull over, read the report, this is, I mean, the issue at hand is one of great consideration. And I'm a little bit concerned about the fact that while we as a body have not had really an opportunity, other than today, to have significant discussion regarding the report itself, the ramifications of the report. I guess I feel like, I don't know, it feels a little bit rushed to me. I mean, I understand receiving the report, but if this is at the spring-off point for the discussion on this subject matter, which is going to, if people pay attention to it, it could have a lot of response that we haven't really even had the time to sit in discussion to talk about the ramifications of what we're doing. And I don't know that we have enough time today to make that. I mean, I understand receiving the report, but when you talk about taking an action about we need to start doing these things, I don't know that we have had adequate discussion. And I'm saying that before the fact. That may be premature.
No, it's perfectly acceptable for the commission to decide to receive the report and to defer the other decisions till later. So you have the option of doing that. And that would be a perfectly good outcome if that is what the commission decides to do. So it's up to the commission to decide. Staff makes a recommendation, but the commission decides what the next step will be and what you vote on.
I think before,
I did have a question.
Yes.
And this goes along, it's sort of, wow,
I know I'm
it's
getting,
really bad. I don't even know how to do that. Okay, here we go. The phase 2 next steps. The second step is prepare the plaza site adjacent to the LRM for a new installation. Okay, that's beyond the signage and the art markers and that sort of thing, yes?
Well, there's a certain location that is being talked about as the site for being able to put let's just call them markers. I'm not going to go through the explanation all the time. To install the markers, and it's a site, it's not technically part of the Land Run Monument itself, but it's part of the wider context.
So prepare the plaza site adjacent, that's for the art markers then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I would like to take the opportunity right now to ask any members of the committee that served to produce this report, or any members of the public who are here who'd like to speak on
Commissioner
this.
Bailey, I've been wanting to say something.
Yes,
Nancy
Commissioner
Finger.
Smalling.
I think that I would encourage to look at the acceptance of what's being proposed as the commencement of the dialogue, that it's the formalization of the process of conversation. By agreeing, what we're doing is we're saying we want a conversation. The conversation will broaden out larger than just us, but it will begin with us, formally by making this decision to accept the recommendations. The conversations themselves have to be long-term. They have to be languid. They have to be You know, there has to be acceptance that we don't know where this is going, and that's fine. And many of our traditions and I'll just speak to my own from the southeastern perspective, the Choctaw perspective, the conversation is what's important, you know, and how that fleshes out, what fleshes out. There's no moratorium on when it's going to be over. This is going to be an interesting process for us as a city, and it's not something that's confrontational, quite the opposite. The other is confrontational. We're offering dialogue where dialogue was never offered. That's very different. And so I would encourage that to be the spirit in which it's received. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I welcome the next person up to continue to provide more background on this report. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Brenda Golden, and I am Muskogee Creek, and I reside in Okmulgee, Oklahoma. So I drove 2 hours to be here today to talk to you for less than 3 minutes. That's how important this is to me and to several of my friends and family. I lived most of my adult life in central Oklahoma. I only just moved to Okmulgee a few years ago, so this has been something that I have been well acquainted with most of my life, being here in central Oklahoma. Let me tell you a little bit about the Society to Preserve Indigenous Rights and Indigenous Treaties. We came together in 2007 whenever there were all the celebrations going on about the statehood 100-year celebration, and that's when we found out that there was a big bronze land run monument being planned. The first one had already been put there, partially with state centennial money, partially through fundraising. And we started protesting that installation at that time. We've had numerous sit-ins, demonstrations. We laid under the hooves. We had a parade that ended up there where we have had, we put cement skulls under the hooves of the horses before. And for years, we protested the 89er Day in Norman, Oklahoma, until they finally quit doing it. So this is something that's not taught in public schools, as Randy alluded to. No public school teaches the true history of what happened at the land run, not just from the indigenous perspective, but also how horrible it was for non-native people that got ran over and killed and butchered and blood running in the rivers because they were greedy and wanted free land. And in fact, the land wasn't free because my people marched here. 6 out of 10 of them died on the way here under a false premise that once we got here, our lands would never be disturbed again. And that's why we're involved in this, because there was a promise, there's a treaty that said all of this was going to be undisturbed. And then a few years later, here we are assigned to 40 acres, 80 acres, 160 acres, and this free land opened up where we couldn't participate, black people couldn't participate, Chinese people couldn't participate, only non-native or Caucasian people could participate in getting this land. That's not taught in the schools. That's not taught anywhere in public education. The horrendous effects of what happened from that land run, and the fact that it's one-sided here in Oklahoma City, where people are coming to such a beautiful spot. I mean, it is beautiful. When you walk around that trail, go down the canal, it has really come a long way since 2007. It is time for us to have our perspective put there, our part of history. If it starts out with just one marker that they can touch, screen, and get it, this is who lived here 1,000 years ago, the Wichita, the Pawnee, and the Oto, whoever was here first, and all the way through the devastating effects of what happened to our communities for these people to have a land run, should be memorialized there, because people don't walk across to the First Americans Museum. If they're down there eating at Bricktown, they're not going to take the time if they're just here to do that one thing, or if they're here for a convention. They're going to walk the canal, and that's what they're going to see. We need to have our side represented there, and I appreciate the thought that you all give to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we have a question from Commissioner Williams.
I didn't really have a question, just a quick comment. I appreciate you saying that. Whenever I was in second, third grade, I lived in a small town called Coyle, Oklahoma, and there was probably maybe 2 black kids in the elementary, me and my sister. And then I think we probably had maybe, that I remember, 2 or 3 Native kids. And I remember I came from OKC schools to that school, and I remember they had a big land run planned for all the kids. And at the land run, you know, they took the baseball field and you know, had chalk and made all these different squares, and they want us to dress up and get wagons and go run and get your land, and you know, it was supposed to be a fun thing. And so I ran home and I told my mom, I said, you know, I gotta get me a cowboy suit for the land run and a wagon, and she was like, what? You're not going that day. You know, she didn't allow us to go to participate, and we didn't, you know, I didn't get to receive the true history at school, but luckily my mom, you know, shared the true history with me and didn't allow us to participate in those things. Fast forward, this past summer, I performed on the canal, on the boat, you know. I did 3 shows, and so, you know, the boat goes through, and I'd seen it, but I had never like ridden the boat, the canal through to see it, and up close it's huge, and it's, you know, it's crazy to see up close because it does look good, you know. But as we're going and I'm performing, I'm just freestyling and doing improv, you know, rapping to the people on the boat. And I start to tell the story about when I was in school, and I start to tell some of the stories that I read about, you know, about the Native people and, you know, even the black people during that time and what they went through. And I told some of the stories I read in, you know, the Boomtown book as I'm rapping these things. And the people on the boats were cheering and excited and happy. And, you know, they were so happy that, you know, while they got to see it, you know, they also got to hear like a different perspective and a different story than what they had been told or what they heard, because most of them weren't from Oklahoma, I don't think, at the time. And, you know, they were visiting, like you said. And so whenever we got off, they were like, man, how can we hear more about, you know, that story of the land run? And only place I could tell them was to read Boomtown. But, you know, to your point, it would be good to say, okay, well, if you go over here, you know, this, you know, you go over here, you can see this marker, it says this, or on this side, you know, they have this part of the story being told. And so I just think that not only is it necessary, we have a responsibility to tell that story, but I think there are people who really want to hear the full story and the other side, so.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Chambers.
This committee, I wish it was required training for every person serving on a committee, commission, or board. And speaking for our municipality, it was a steep learning curve for me. I did not think I belonged on this committee. I do not come from an indigenous perspective. But Robbie Kinzel and our now chair said, please. And I said that I will participate because I will learn something. And my only role in this committee is to amplify indigenous voices. It was one of the hardest things I have ever done, having done nothing, because I had so much listening and learning to do. Anita, if I may, I think it would be important for you to speak to the process, how you synthesized, gathered, begged for as many perspectives and voices as possible. This was difficult work, especially on your part as a knowledge keeper and bringing this information together. I think that would speak to some of what Commissioner Cooper and Smalling have mentioned about the dialogue. Again, I wish everyone here could have been a part of those listening sessions. Anita, please.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Anita Fields. I'm originally from Stillwater. That's my home address. But I've been residing in Tulsa for the past 6 years as a Tulsa Artist Fellow with the Kaiser Foundation. And that is where I came from today to be here. And thank you for all of your comments and Brenda's guidance and Randy, everybody who had a hand in this. I consider myself a lifelong learner. So, my son, Yadika Starfields, is a painter and muralist, also with the Tulsa Artist Fellowship. We were both asked to join this team as called Knowledge Keepers. And our job was to gather folks up and make recordings and scribe, what was being said. And so as team members, we met and came up with a brochure and a, something for people to fill out. And questions, specific questions, which you've seen that, in this report. And it was quite emotional, as was stated earlier. And I want to add there, because of something that I think Mr. Smalling said, is that as an artist, I believe in this process. And I know that it doesn't always tell me exactly where we're going, but because I believe in the arts and I believe in the process, I know that it's going to show us what it needs to show us, because art is that powerful. We gathered groups together. We tried to hook on to events that were already happening in both within, the Native communities and non-Native communities. We handed out these brochures. We asked people, there was also an online element to it where you could fill this out online and it would record your answers. So there was online, there was in person, there was, taken to gatherings. Wherever we went, we took these brochures and we took the, the questionnaire and handed them out. And many times told that story over 50 times in one evening, so people would be, and we wanted the Native community to understand what we were doing in terms of you have an opportunity to make a comment about this now. So I'm asking really for your support and your consideration in this, because it's really important. And I, like everybody else that was stated, I have living in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where Oklahoma began. There's a big sign outside of Stillwater saying that. And as a Native mother, my children were introduced to the land run very much like you were saying, in terms of these land runs that were held, and they would come home with lots of questions, and we too did not participate in those. We chose to use that time as in terms of education, perhaps reading something or, introducing them to what has been written about it from the perspective as Indigenous people. Let's see, I wanted to make a comment here. Just that this space and that this report is extremely important for Indigenous representation, because there are very few landmarks, memorials, or anything of that speaking to the experience, as Brenda pointed out in the beginning, to the true history of what happened during the land run. I also feel really, strongly that this kind of dialogue, this kind of discussion is paramount to the solutions and resolutions in a history where our viewpoint and our Indigenous representation has little or none, and I think this is an opportunity for us to remedy that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak today? Okay. Further discussion or comments or questions from commissioners?
I just want to ask, are you also...
Microphone. There you go.
Just ask, are y'all also addressing the schools with the same passion you're addressing us?
I can answer that. Spirit has been to the Department of Education repeatedly asking for that to happen, that we cease having those land run reenactments in public schools. And the school superintendent believes that that's a district issue, so that's pushed off to the school districts to make that decision. But yes, we have tried petitions, we've tried meetings, we've had different things at the school, yes.
Yes, Commissioner Chambers?
I just wanted to add, and it's in the report, but I wanted to state publicly, also on the committee, the significant work of our other committee members. You've heard from Brenda, but also Sarah Adams and Kendra Clements. Their earlier conversations before a formalized body that was acknowledged by the city and the Arts Commission, they did a lot of that foregrounding work and making those ties between the community, city leaders, and finding something, some way we could respond in organizing a meaningful effort. So I wanted to mention Sarah and Kendra in addition to Brenda. Finally, Jane Abraham from the city manager's office, who had a long association with this project and found herself, I don't want to speak for her and share my own story, but from what I saw, she was responsible for initiating a monumental project, and when it was finished, she found herself having to continue the conversation, an art project that maybe one or two people will have in an entire body of work and a career. And she realized her work was just getting started. So thank you to Jane as well.
I have a quick question. Because this is just listed for items for discussion action, whoever does make a motion can choose the motion that they so want to make, correct? We've heard staff recommendations, but whoever is making a motion can choose what portion or none of those that they so wish to present.
I move to receive, recommend, and recommend a call to artists as stated in the staff report.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Chambers and a second from Commissioner Smalling. Further discussion from commissioners. Hearing none, there is a vote on your screen. This item passes. Thank you for your time on this item. I'm sure we will have many more presentations in front of Arts Commission continuing this conversation, and I assume there will be a presentation in front of City Council at a further date due to our recommendation for it to be, oh yes, Commissioner Hill?
Sorry I'm late to the conversation, but I do want to thank the committee and those of you who are here today for the work that you've done on this. I was in kind of on the beginning with Mayor Holt on some of these conversations, and then also with Robbie, and the direction this is headed is, I think, a really positive direction, and I think it speaks well for the entire community of Oklahoma City that this is how we choose to address these kinds of issues. So thank you again for your time and energy and service to this.
Okay. We move on to our next item on the agenda. This is item 3B, a mural for Bar K at 901 Southeast 5th Street in Ward 7. Randy, can you present this item?
At last month's commission meeting, you saw the first part of this project at Bar K. Again, Bar K is a business that is being, being built in the Boathouse District. And the third mural, just to go back again, you can see the Boathouse District, the pump track, et cetera. The Oklahoma River Greenway Trail passing close by. And then where the star is where Barquet will be, and Barquet will have a venue for both humans and dogs. So that is the idea behind it. This is Colors and Shapes by Lindsay Zadro. This is the work that will go on the outdoor stage. And I can give more detail about it. Lindsay has provided a VERA waiver and submitted the packet, and staff recommends approval. And approval in this case would be a recommendation for a mural permit from Development Services, which is the next stage.
Excuse me,
Yes, Commissioner Cooper?
isn't Seresto a brand name of a product?
It is, and it's also they're sponsoring the stage, and it is the name of the stage. And it's less than 10% of the area of the mural. So that's why this does not qualify as a sign. Under our previous understanding, yes, that would have been a sign, but we find that the interpretations are changing even as we stand here and talk and deliberate.
Okay, because that's basically a product endorsement.
They
Sponsorship.
Sponsorship.
Sponsorship, yeah. It is a sponsorship.
There have been previous murals, when Google did their sponsorship of several murals in Oklahoma City, we did allow Google to be listed on as long as it was under 10%. I think I'm dating myself with that comment, that I was serving on the commission at the time. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Hill and a second from Commissioner Chambers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, you may vote on your screen.
I have it right here. Great. Press again.
Say yay.
Yay.
Oops.
This item passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 3C, nomination committee recommendations. It is that time to be discussing our future leadership roles on the commission. Randy, can you present this item?
So the nominations committee met actually several times to discuss the leadership for the next year or two for the commission. I'm very happy to report the results are that they recommend that Stefan Kovash be chair through December of 2024, that Commissioner J.B. Williams be vice chair also through December of 2024, and that Teresa Wassant be commission advocate through December of 2023. This is no slight for Teresa. Teresa wanted to do it for 1 year. So our standing rules are that the terms are actually for 1 year, but we have the nominations committee, and the full commission has the option of extending that invitation to be 2 years. So this is the staff recommendation is that this be accepted heartily.
Any comments from commissioners? Okay, I await a motion. Moved by Commissioner Cooper and seconded by Commissioner Kovash. You may now vote on your screen. That item passes. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 4, discussion action on reports from committees. I will start with the 1% task force. Okay, all external experts that are going to be serving on the 1% task force have agreed to participate, I believe, or we're awaiting responses for some of them. They've all been invited to participate. in their fields of expertise, and there is an expectation that there will be 1 to 2 Zoom meetings over the course of the winter with an upcoming report presented to Commission for discussion and action, maybe in the winter or the spring. So that is very soon going to be back in front of us. What other committees do we have to report today? I think that's it. Okay, that's it. Commissioner Salyer is not here today. Moving on to item 5, staff report.
These are photos that were taken this morning in Upper Scissortail Park, right across from the Omni. And that is indeed taking flight, light as a feather, that is in place, being installed. So this 4-year process is now coming to a beautiful, beautiful conclusion Wednesday night at 5:30. Now, there was a little discussion about maybe there's going to be a change because of the cold weather that is blowing in right at that time. But anyway, Wednesday at 5:30, planning on having the dedication part of it. And remember that this body recommended several months ago, I believe it was the June meeting, to dedicate this piece in honor of Robbie. Events overtook us, unfortunately, and Robbie passed before she was able to, we were hoping that she would be able to be here at this time, obviously, and that would be dedicated to her life and work. So it is dedicated to her. It's not in memoriam, but it is dedicated to Robbie and the fantastic job that she did pulling this one through all the things that it went through to get it to this point. So anyway, hopefully you guys will be able to be out there Wednesday at 5:30. The light goes on at 6 o'clock. That's the ceremonial lighting. Various dignitaries, including Mayor Holt, will be on hand for this event. Everybody seems to be pretty happy about this. Also, right across the street, this isn't nearly so momentous, but we did get a marker finally for the Hearst coin painting. And that's the only comment I'll have about that right now. And then something to look forward to. And this relates very, very directly to our newest commission member. So this is the work in progress, Together by Joe Slack. That is, Joe just sent me these, I think on Friday. So these are fresh paintings. This is the work that is going to be installed in front of the Convention Center in honor of the 50th anniversary of Allied Arts. And remember that Allied Arts is putting it on a long-term loan to the city. Allied Arts will actually own it. It'll be on long-term loan to the city. So, and I don't have more pictures, but there are more things that are going to be coming in the first quarter of the year. So it's shaping up to be a really exciting 2023 for the installation of public art in Oklahoma City.
Commissioner Center.
And in memory of Bert Cooper. I want to make sure that was in there. It's in honor of Allied Arts 50 years and in memory of Bert Cooper.
Thank you for adding that. Okay, comments from commission members. Items from the chair. Today is my last meeting as chair. I am going to be passing the, what is this called? Gavel to Commissioner Kovash, and he will do an excellent job as chair for the upcoming 2 years. So, I look forward to serving as a regular commission member in our meetings upcoming. Any other items from commissioners? No? Okay. Moving on to item 7. Any members of the public that would like to speak today? Seeing none, I will remind everyone that our next meeting is January 23rd, 2023. It will be held in the Embark Large Conference Room, not here, in the Embark Conference Room over across the street from the city offices, next to Clarity Coffee.
I have a quick comment about that. So
Yes.
there's going to be work being done for a period of about 2 weeks here in council chambers. So there needed to be a different location. So again, right across from 420, right next to Clarity Coffee. And also note that that is not the third Monday, it's the fourth because of MLK Day on the 16th. So those are two changes in the same meeting, so we'll look forward to seeing you there then.
And we are adjourned. Have a good holiday season, everyone. Thank you.